South Africa take on New Zealand in the second and final test at Christchurch. And it's a situation where South Africa need to win. It's a situation where I think New Zealand would love to win. It's a chance for them to get their number one spot back at the top of the test rankings. And also, it's an opportunity for them to clinch their first ever series win against South Africa. Now, that's very important for the future of New Zealand cricket. That's very important for the future of this team as well. So, we're going to be discussing this match. We're going to be discussing what South Africa need to do to clinch this, to obviously draw the series, clinch a victory, and try to put in a much better performance than they did in the first test. So that's what today's show is going to be about. So, guys, before we get started, before we get going, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to click that notification bell for all future videos as well. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment, share, and do all of those things as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Cricket Fanatics Magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. It's all about the Proteas' preparation for the Women's World Cup. So go check that particular issue out. The issue is free, like I said, and all back issues too. So without further ado, guys, let's get straight into today's content. Looking forward to this one. Not sure who's going to be joining us besides Aditya, but we can wait and see how the conversation goes along. Check you guys on the other side. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your preview show. I'm your host, Khalid. This is the show where we talk about everything that has to do with the second test between South Africa and New Zealand. Oops, I just clicked the wrong button there. That's more like it. So, yeah, we're going to be chatting about the game. And I think majority of the conversation happened in yesterday's daily show where we chatted about what changes need to be made. But let's talk about what this means for both teams, Aditya. So in the intro, I mentioned that this is an opportunity for New Zealand to go number one on the test rankings again. It's also an opportunity to claim a historic first win against South Africa in the test series. So there's a lot of history, and this match will mean a lot to New Zealand. So we know they're going to come with everything, and they're going to throw everything at South Africa. Can they get a lot better than they were in the first test? They did nearly every single thing right. So it's going to be very difficult for them to be better than they were in the first test. But I mean, South Africa was so under par and so undercooked in that match that it's going to take a lot of effort from South Africa to get a victory out of this test. But if they do the basics right on this wicket and they focus on their game plans and not being too conservative, trying to take the fight to New Zealand too, I think we'll see a much more competitive contest this time around.
Yes, and I suppose that's the expectation, right? Because South Africa tend to be slow starters, and like I said, recent history tells us that they tend to do better when they've had some volume under their belts. Um, I'd be interested to know what the messaging has been from the captain and the team management to the rest of the players. But I'm pretty sure that team discussions after that first test match would not have been easy listening. So let's see what performances South Africa can put up in the second test match. As for New Zealand, the coach Gary Stead said that they don't expect the conditions to be particularly different compared to the first test match, and New Zealand is not exactly the sort of team that shuffles a lot. So I'm fairly sure that they'd stick with the same 11. And Trent Bolt continues to be unavailable for the series. So I suppose that's some respite for New Zealand, but then New Zealand's bowling lineup has been strong, so it's I can't say that it's going to get any easier for South Africa's batters.
Hmm. It's not. And they need to make sure that they have their game plans in order, and that the game plan, according to the conditions, doesn't stifle their personal game plans. That's the trick, I think, is that South Africa will have. It's maintaining their regular game plans and how they want to play their cricket, and trying to adjust it to the conditions, adjusted to the point that it's still recognizable what they're trying to do, not completely stifle it. You don't want an attacking batter to suddenly become completely defensive. Try to find ways on how to use your attacking mindset and how to use your attacking style to be a little defensive at some points. Like, for example, leaving the ball with confidence, coming forward, looking confident, getting on the front foot, playing to your strengths, but also being patient. And there needs to be a blend. And it's going to be a big, big match for the senior guys. And it is about time that Rassie van der Dussen, that Dean Alger, that Temba Bavuma now step up as senior guys. Aiden Markram, if he gets another opportunity in this match, then he needs to put on some runs. Otherwise, I think there's only one way for Aiden, and that's to drop him and let him play domestic cricket again. If that's the case, if it's another failed performance, I don't see South Africa changing this particular match. I think they're going to be picking probably the same lineup. I think if Lungin was fit, we might have seen a change. The only thing that I can see them doing and changing is probably a spinner. If they feel that the spinner is going to give them um, some rewards in this particular test match. Other than that, from their perspective, I don't see them changing the team. I don't know what you think South Africa will do. What is your thoughts on Aditya on what South Africa would do?
Well, in addition to all the points that you just mentioned, I'd imagine that Dean Elgar would probably have another conversation with KG Rabada to ensure that he lights some sort of fire in his belly, because and the KG Rabada in full flow and with top-notch intensity is likely to rattle New Zealand, particularly on these wickets. So I hope that conversation has been had, and I hope that KG responds in the same way that he responded against India in Johannesburg.
Hmm.
So let's see how that goes. But
Yeah.
yeah, in addition to all the players that you mentioned, Aiden Markram, Rassie van der Dussen, Dean Elgar, uh, I think it's important. South Africa, with a fully fit and firing KG Rabada, is a stronger outfit, and but at the same
Mhm.
time, as we've mentioned previously, this is this this test series will be another indication that South Africa needs to review its bowling stocks and nurture a few more bowlers who can bowl within that 145 and 150 kilometers per hour mark.
Yeah. I think South Africa also needs to have some consistency with their selection when it comes to the bowlers, because the bowling unit have been rattled quite a bit over the last couple of last couple of games. You can see Anrik Nokia that he is a key factor to this bowling unit. If the if we have Lungin fit in Nokia and KG, and then you throw in a Marco Janssen in the mix, and you throw a Dwan Olivier in the mix, it's a very deadly attack, So unfortunately, South Africa haven't necessarily had their full bowling lineup that they'd want to see for the foreseeable future fit and ready to play. But Werner, we know what we want. We spoke about it in length yesterday on the show, what all of us want to see happen. But from your perspective, what do you think South Africa will do for tomorrow's game? From with regards to the lineup, first and foremost.
Yeah, I expect them to maybe not make any changes. Um, we'll see. They do surprise us sometimes with interesting selections. So we have to see how it ends up. But I think they'll probably want to scratch off that first game and just say, "And this is the guys we backed for the first test. It went horribly wrong, but we're gonna give them a second chance to show what they can do." Um, I personally would give Rickleton a shot, but there's a good chance they'll go in unchanged.
Yeah, and the spinner aspect, that's going to obviously play a role as well. It could possibly be two changes. With some of the ruffling sounds that I'm hearing from people around the Proteas, I've heard some people actually favor maybe having Keshav Maharaj. It's a quick turnaround from not having any spinner touch a blade of grass in New Zealand, eh?
I I would personally still wouldn't play Keshav on that pitch. Keshav is a great bowler, and he has done well in New Zealand at other venues, but I personally wouldn't play him on a pitch that is so conducive to seamers if Algar's going to use him in the same way he used him at Supersport Park and at the Wanderers. If he's going
Mm,
to use him in a totally different way, maybe then let's say he's now seen the first game go so poorly for our bowlers, and he needs Keshav to hold one end for a majority of the day. Then I could
mm,
see maybe going with Keshav, having
yeah.
him on one side and rotating the bowlers on the other end. But I don't think this is really that type of pitch, personally. But I wouldn't be against Keshav playing. I just don't think. I think it might end up going the same way that it went at Super Park and the Wanderers, and he'll bowl and over before lunch and over up to tea, and then at the end of the day maybe give him 2 overs and see what happens. And that's
Yeah,
not the right way to use Keshav. So if they do decide, can you still hear me fine?
yeah. What?
So, so if they do decide to use him, um, then they need to use him properly.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the bowling that was an issue for South Africa. It was a slight issue, but it wasn't the cause of the terrible defeat. It was more not putting enough on the board for the bowlers to actually bowl at. It's very difficult to bowl with any sort of like fight in you if you have such a little on the board. So like it's difficult, of course, to do so. But I wouldn't blame the bowlers for this. Yes, the bowlers didn't made it harder for us to be able to come back, but still, I don't think that the game could have been a lot closer than South Africa made it out to be. Don't you think, Aditya? It was just very lackluster and like in a jet in I don't know what the word is even. Listerless.
It was a listless performance, but I disagree a little bit about bowling not being a problem, because ultimately, 482 runs have been conceded
Yeah, I
on
mean, I don't mean it
in
wasn't a problem at all, but I'm just saying that the batting is far more of a problem than the bowling is.
of course. I mean, I think
Yeah,
95 all out is like 9.9 times out of 10 that's going to lose you test matches. There's no doubt about that. Uh, but at the same time, Dean Elgar was quite vocal in the way he was quite vocal, um, while expressing his frustrations about the bowling. Because he said that they simply could not maintain enough pressure, they couldn't string enough maidens together, and batters were scoring on both sides of the wicket. So um, I look, we do have to talk about the batting, and the batting group certainly needs to reflect harder. But at the same time, I don't think that it can be assumed safely that the bowling is in a good space. I think the bowling needs work as well, and certainly with KG Rabada, I think the inconsistency in his performances is hurting South Africa. Because you have these important test matches, certainly the first in every series, where things are not really going the team's way, and then it really requires a monumental effort, to sort of bring it back, and shift that momentum in South Africa's favor. So I do think that the bowling needs a fair bit of work as well.
Hmm. Something very interesting came from Sarel Erwee's press conference, and Abhay, you can maybe comment on it, but this is the quote. He said that conditions-wise, it was probably the most testing I have faced, and it was an incredible experience either way to be tested like that. Obviously, I am disappointed not to get the result I wanted as an individual and as a team on my debut. I've been found. I've been around the squad for over a year now, four for 4 series, and as the 12th man, I've experienced the intensity of Test cricket when I was fielding as a substitute at training or during them team discussions or discussions that individuals have between each other. I always knew the intensity was going to be high and there was not going to be any let ups. So it wasn't a surprise to me. The biggest surprise probably that the intensity doesn't go away. It is up there every ball, every hour, and every minute. But overall, there were no real surprises, to be honest. It sounds like there were. A lot of people asked me the day before and the morning of the test how I was feeling, and I was very relaxed. I think it helped that I have been in with the squad for a while because you start integrating with the guys where you understand the standards, culture, and the training methods and intensities. I was focused, but I was very relaxed with no nerves whatsoever. The only time I had goosebumps was when I walked out with Dean Alger to bat. I actually said to him, it was the first time I got goosebumps. I had no heart rate that spiked. It was just cool. Mentally, I visualized that it would be like walking out to bat, and it was a nice to walk out in front of a crowd at the stadium. So that's some of the comments that Sarel Erwee had to say. It's funny that he's saying that he wasn't necessarily too nervous about it. He only got goosebumps when he walked out to the middle. About what's your thoughts on Sarel's comments, and big match for him too.
Yeah, it's considering he's had to wait for around a year to finally get a Test debut. It's kind of the monkey off his back. Like he's finally getting a chance to play for South Africa. Um, but considering he's what 32. He's kind of expected to hit the ground running. So this upcoming game is going to be very big. He's going to have to put forth a strong performance if he's going to remain um, part of the squad slash a starter. I guess when it comes to the nervous part, if you aren't necessarily in the playing 11, you're kind of learning what's going on in the game. That part I agree with. But yeah, it's natural to feel a little bit nervous when you're walking out to the middle when you're playing international cricket for the very first time.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean we've had plenty of conversation on this channel that unfortunately when a player is a lot older and getting the opportunity at international cricket, we expect the older guys that understand the game a lot better, which is what we understand by age, is that when you're playing for long periods of time, you probably know your game a lot better than other players that are younger, because you've obviously played cricket for much longer. You've obviously played 4-day cricket much longer, so you have more experience, so you understand your game a lot better. So we expect, generally speaking, for 30-year-olds plus to kind of hit the ground running almost instantly. And we are a little bit more forgiving with younger guys coming into the side. Like we know what we said about Rassi. Rassi came in and he hit 50s immediately. He kind of cemented his spot that way. He's never looked very comfortable at the crease from in the test arena, but sometimes he's grounded out some scores and some good results for South Africa over time. But do you think, Abai, that it's fair for us to say that about the more experienced older guys, that they need to hit the ground running immediately?
Look, this viewpoint is totally understandable. I mean, a lot of people I know have a similar viewpoint, but one thing I do want to add is that players have to be given a fair share of games before we can say, yeah, they are good enough for this level, or no, they're not good enough for this level. You're not going to be able to get to know if a player is good enough after just one test match, whether he's a batter, a bowler, all rounder, whatever his role may be. So I guess with Sarel Erwee a minimum of 5, maybe 6 test matches. If I had to be very stringent, maybe one home series and one away series is a good gauge to figure out whether he is or isn't good enough for Test cricket. But yeah, I think when it comes to experienced guys, I mean, we saw with Heino Kun when he debuted against England, when South Africa last visited England for I think it was 4 test matches, and and his selection was a reward for doing well domestically and for the A team. He had been putting in the hard yards for quite some time, but when he finally got the got a full Test series to play, he got found out rather brutally against quality bowling from England, and unfortunately for him, Aiden Markham was knocking on the door for a while, and that ended up being both his first and his last Test series. But again, it just goes to show that the more experience you have under your belt, it's natural for people to expect you to produce the results as soon as possible.
Anybody want to jump in?
I agree with whatever I said, but the question is whether he'll get the number of test matches that he probably needs to establish himself at this level. Given that KP is going to come back, and once he does, Aiden's probably going to move back to the opening spot along with Dean Elgar. So I don't know. I feel like Sarel's in a tricky spot at the moment. Um,
I don't think Aiden is going to move back unless he plays this match and has a stellar match and scores a century. In all honesty, I think he's very, very close to being dropped. If it's not dropped in this game and he underperforms again, I expect Erwee to open with Algar in the next series and KP to come back in at 3. That's what I'm expecting. Um, I think Aiden is on very thin ice right now. I would personally play Rickleton ahead of him. Um, but if he does get his chance, he really needs to take it in this test match. I do think it is now or never for him, at least
Especially
for a
when the doors
while.
like, oh, sorry.
No, continue, Abai.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Okay, I got a little excited because I had something like on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, in situations like these, sorry, yeah, but yeah, in situations like these, when the door's like kind of a crack open for a new player, it's the time when he's got to make the most of his opportunities, because in some cases they may or may not come back.
Yeah, and how much does this go to us just accepting the fact that we are slow starters? In all the tests that we've been playing, we start so slowly. I mean, India, we got beaten Centurion first time ever against India at Centurion, and then we go on to win the series. I'm hoping that this, because it was such a disappointment to see that we didn't even get a warm up game, that there wasn't proper preparation for them to get the lay of the land and acclimatize themselves to New Zealand and the time zones. And that was a disappointment from the management point of view. But we still expected a better performance. So now, at this point, do we as fans expect a win? Or do we just want to see South Africa fight to try? What will we be happy with as a fan base?
I will
Everybody
only
stumped.
I will only truly
Uh
be happy if we win the second test. To be fair, obviously I'd firstly love to see a lot better performance in general. If we play extremely well and we turn things around totally, and New Zealand still managed to beat us because they're still too good for us, I can accept that. But I can't accept the way we played in the first game. So if we come back and we bat a lot better, even put up over 300 for a change, and we bowl well, and still New Zealand managed to beat us, that I'll take.
Mhm. Okay, let's get some predictions in. Like, how do you stop Aditya? I mean, if you in South Africa's position, is it more about stopping New Zealand or just more about playing South Africa, just trusting and themselves and their abilities? Because I feel like they played themselves out of the game almost by coming with a predetermined game plan that they never changed.
Well, a couple of things. I think South Africa need to get the basics right. You know, bat with discipline, find that balance between attack and defense. Leave well, not worry too much about strike rate. Um, just the basics of test match batting. They definitely need to catch well. If they drop, I think, how was it, 5 catches through the test match, Werner?
Mhm.
Drop 5 catches, then
I think it
that's going
was
to cost them
7.
7 catches.
It
Drop
was
7 catches. That's going to be a problem. And the bowling also needs to be a bit more disciplined. If they most KG is the leader of that attack. He needs to fire, and he's the only one in that attack who can cross that 145 kilometer per hour mark. And if he can do that on a consistent basis, then South Africa's bowling looks that much more potent. So I think it's about getting the basics right. They didn't get the basics right in that first test match. It cost them the game. New Zealand got it right. They did brilliantly well. So, if it's that war of attrition, right? Like whoever can demonstrate their skill set for a longer period of time, they're going to win. So New Zealand did that and came back and uh, were far and away the victors in that game. So in the second test match, if they can get their basics right, then they can certainly give New Zealand a good fight. But one question that I want to raise to all of y'all and everyone in the comment section as well is, um, when did this? When did South Africa become slow starters? Because I don't really remember them being slow starters until very recently, like a year or so ago. It's not always that South Africa lost the first Test match in a series or the second Test match in a series. So
Mhm.
when did that really happen and why?
You know, basically, I think, yeah. I mean, generally speaking, we we never always started slowly. Before you're right, Aditya. From my observation of everything, I think it's when our batting collapsed the way it has been. When our batting was not something to rely upon. Like we can't really necessarily rely upon our batting as before. Like when the top guys were performing. Um, so it's tough because you try and look at when, like a guy posed a good question in the private chat, was asking when last did South Africa actually score a massive, like 300 total. Okay, besides Sri Lanka, which they did 600 and odd in Sri Lanka at Centurion, that was a depleted Sri Lanka side. So when we look at match, if we look at the last time South Africa actually scored like the runs, it's above 300, etc. I mean, even that games against India, the match, the first game that India won, they managed to score 300 plus, you know. So yeah, besides Sri Lanka, I see that Werner put it in the private chat as well. Sri Lanka scored they scored 601, I think it was against Sri Lanka, 621 against Sri Lanka in December 2020, and then 2021. I think they also played Sri Lanka. Let's double check where that is now. Um, this is not giving me. This is only the highest totals. I can't. I need to
The
go check
last time
quickly.
before that was in 2019 versus India in. Yeah, I'm bad with pronunciations. Aditya will have to help me out, but Visakhapatnam.
Oh, Vishakhapatnam. Yeah,
Yeah,
Vizag,
that was the
okay.
or
last
Vizag
time
for sure.
that one where Algar and Quinny scored quite big.
Mm.
That was the last time before that Sri Lanka one. So it definitely doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and that's been the problem among South Africa's batters, and we know that South Africa have a batting issue. And thank you for the stats, Werner. I was trying to look for it in order, but Cricket Info has also changed the what's it, the interface, so it's a lot different than before. I need to actually go check it and do the in-depth stats check by Stats Guru. But yeah, it's been difficult. South Africa's had a batting problem for a while. Is the batting is it the approach or is it personnel? I think that's a good question to ask.
Maybe the approach. I'm not completely sure myself, but I guess one thing I kind of noticed during the India series was quite a few guys being in survival mode. Even Dean Elgar to some extent, he was playing out lots of dot balls. I think the only guy who seemed to be quote unquote an enforcer was Keegan Peterson, who is absent in this series. Which leads me to a question for anyone here. Is the absence of a couple of key players kind of negatively affecting the Proteas? Because personally, I don't think that that should be too big a psychological problem. Because I think this is something that Aditya might relate to. If we look at India in Australia, in the fourth test, they were without like nearly half of their good players, and they still managed to seal the series. So it kind of does beg this important question. Anyone can take it.
Well, it starts first and foremost with when it depends what your strengths are. Like from South Africa's perspective, our strengths has been our bowling for the last couple of years. So we expect for our team to take 20 wickets every single game that we play, and that has been a goal since Otis Gibson took over. That was going to be the mentality, and that mentality has remained because our bowlers have saved us out in a lot of occasions, and us missing those a key player like Anrich Nokia and Lungi Ngidi, who have been two of the best bowlers South Africa's had in Test cricket over the last couple of years. Even though Lungi was injured, he's considered one of the best Test bowlers we have. Rabada hasn't necessarily been the same Rabada as we saw against the likes of Australia and all of those teams back then. So when he was completely on fire and ruthless, and we're hoping that he's been getting wickets and he's been putting in decent performances, but it's nowhere near the 100% Rabada that we know. So I think that has made it difficult. But also, what's made it difficult is that we can't seem to find solidity at the top of the order. That is 100% a problem with South African cricket at the moment. It's that opening partnership between Alga and Aiden Markram. It's been up and down since Aiden made his debut. One day you'll see Aiden score, and then the next day you'll see Dean score, and then sometimes they both don't score, and then you need your number three to come and save it. Or sometimes it was so bad that we have how many times have we had Quinton de Kock and Temba Vuma save the series for us or a game for us? That shouldn't be the case on a regular basis. They shouldn't be sitting there as some of your top run scorers in your team. Quinton Cox still one of the top run scorers in our team, sitting at 6 or 7. That shouldn't be the case. That's a problem. Clearly, that a top order is a problem. So let's continue that conversation and get it going. Werner, what do you think it's more approach or do you think it's personnel?
Um, I do think it's approach, but there is a problem with personnel if they are out of form going into a series. I feel like Markram was in pretty poor form throughout the India series, so he came into this series in poor form and he's continued that. So that is an issue, but it is approach. I'd like to see our batters really put the price on their wickets, um, and just play good test match cricket, as Aditya said as well. Wait for the ball to come to you. Don't go fishing outside the off stump. Play it under your eye. Play it late. Basics. I just want to see us do the basics a whole lot better. And then just to point something out that they also pointed out in the comments section that I missed, we did score over 300 one other time, which was in the West Indies in that first innings, which was mainly
302.
due to Quentin.
No, no, no.
Quentin.
No, I'm
It
lying.
was mainly due to Quentin de Kock scoring 141 of 170 balls, which is insane. But we
Yeah,
don't have Quinny
323.
anymore, so we can't rely on that. So yeah, our approach is the main problem. I don't think we can make wholesale changes. Even if I like to see Rickleton in there, he coming in on his debut won't be able to do it alone either.
Mm.
Um, Bavuma's in very good form, but I'd like to see him use that form better. If you're in great nick like he is, muddling the ball, the attacking shots are coming off, he's looking very compact, and then you need to make it big. You can't then throw it away after 50. He's been doing that too often. He's too often looked the best in the team, and even was the one who was able to save us. But then he doesn't kick on. That is a problem that he needs to sort out. Um, when you get in, you really need to make it big. So yeah, that's something that he needs to work on. And Algar, both of them, they really do need to lead from the front in this test. And going forward, they are our two most senior batters in the team. We have a bunch of new guys. I mean, Arvia, Hamza, Verena, Rikoten if he does come in. Rassi is still fairly new to Test match cricket, but he's also um, at an age where he needs to kick on now, or he might not get another chance as well. Only averaging 32 right now, and he's also almost the same age as Erwee. So um, we're in a tough spot with our batting lineup, but batting has been very tough in the past few years for every team, and there's been a bunch of articles over the last few weeks about just how tough it's been. So I wouldn't bite their heads off, and I do think they do deserve a proper opportunity if you get into this team, not get one or two test matches. I don't feel that is fair or a fair reflection of how good or how bad a batter you are. Like Arve got two good deliveries in the first test match. Does that make him a bad batter? No, I don't think so. Even if he doesn't have a lot of first class centuries, he did come into the squad based on good form domestically. So I feel he does deserve an opportunity to show that. So I would not only play him tomorrow, I'd also give him the Bangladesh series. So I think we'll have to need to stick it out with our batters and also expect a lot more from our bowlers going into the second test because it wasn't good enough in that first test. They didn't hit their lengths consistently, that consistent fuller length that you need to bowl. They bowled both sides of the wicket, so I don't think they can get off free. Even if there were seven drop catches, which would have demoralized them, I understand that. But they still need to be a lot better than they were in that first test match. I think as a whole, we need to be a lot better, and I do expect them to be better. To be fair, I expect that they have had some stern words from Algar and from Boucher, and I also think just the fact that they are a proud team, they want to come back very strongly.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm just looking at the scores right now. Yeah, it's poor. Wow. So, um, if I look at what I'm seeing over here right now, yeah, it's pretty pathetic to be fair. Ultimately, but yeah, I don't know what South Africa needs to do to change things around. I mean, the first thing we say instantly as a fan base is let's just make changes. And we instantly want to make subs and change people around and thinking that the next person doesn't need time to settle in and doesn't need time to walk out to the middle and experience test cricket. It's almost like they need to start being transparent and consistent in their decisions, Cricket South Africa and the selection panel and the coach, etc., with their selection, because them not going with the same team, even though I don't believe they should, is showing inconsistencies. Because then, well, if they drop Hamza tomorrow and they pick Rickleton, then it's like, what the hell did you put Zubair Hamza in for the first place? And it's like it doesn't make sense logically. So us trying to logic it out here is actually pointless. We're gonna have to wait and see what happens in tomorrow's game, because based on the stats in this team, Markram should be dropped, and it's as simple as it's just based purely on, if you're going to look at the stats and form, Markram is the most out of form batsman, no matter the way you look at it. So if you want to drop, or if you're going to use form as a criteria to pick players, then Markram should be dropped in this next match. But let's see, wait and see what South Africa does. I'm interested to see. They need to have a clear plan on how they want to do things going forward when it comes to Test cricket, and not only in the national team. What are they doing under the national team to make sure that our players are ready to make the step up?
I do feel we. You can go,
Sorry, go ahead,
Aditya.
Bana. No, it's fine. Actually, I was gonna digress, but you can continue.
I do feel we need a lot more SAA games. I feel the lack of SAA games are really hurting us. because we're just measuring how good our batters are going into series based on domestic cricket. And a lot of people say our domestic cricket is not a good measuring stick, or it's a massive step up to international cricket. But if you want to sort that type of thing out, then you need a lot more SAA tours, um, and or you need a lot more. Let's say pick an SAA to play against an SA emerging side. If you don't have other tours coming up, you need to do that throughout to keep the best playing against the best, because you might find Lions play against Boerland, and two out of two out of the or 3 out of the 5 bowlers are very good, but then there are those 2 bowlers that you can just play out. You can get easy boundaries of them, and that releases the pressure. But if you play SAA versus SA emerging, or SAA versus SAB, or whatever you want to call it, it'll be the best against the best in the country, just under the Protea level. And I feel we need a lot more of that to really get a good measure of where we are.
Mm. No, SA tours is needed. We need to play a lot more SA tours. The money involved in those tours, though, is quite expensive to organize them. And if in CSA or in financial difficulty, like we all presume they are, it's going to be difficult to create more opportunities. But then they can at least do something internally, amongst the players that are available, and put on some games between SA 19, SA emerging, and let them fight against each other. Mix the teams up, put some Proteas bowlers with some SAA batters or SA under 19 batters, or and mix it up a bit. You could have SA under 19 all rounders, SA bowlers, and Proteas batsmen, and then switch it around accordingly across the teams, and then let them play against each other. Let's see what they're capable of. Aditya, you wanted to digress?
Yes. I've been thinking a fair bit about the bowling and getting the best out of bowlers, right? Obviously after Dale Stein's retirement, after Vernon Philander and Mone Mokel were out of the team, uh, South Africa have still had some solid bowlers who've saved South Africa on a number of occasions. Uh, but I still feel like the captaincy is not getting the best out of the bowling attack. I look at Faf du Plessis' captaincy. He had a young KG Rabada, an inexperienced KG Rabada. Obviously, his body was probably fresher at the time, but he had an inexperienced KG Rabada, and he turned him into, one of the world's most quoted fast bowlers. He was also able to get the best out of Vernon Philander and Mone Mokel when they were on their way out. And Keshav Maharaj was also young and inexperienced at the time, and he played a significant role for the team, at home and away. So I feel like captaincy plays an important role here, and Dean Elgar is still evolving as a bowler's captain in Test cricket. Uh, but it is something um, that probably needs some reflection and some work,
Mhm.
because at the moment it's not really working, right?
Yeah.
Certainly in conditions that are bowler friendly and certainly seamer friendly.
To be fair on KG, it's not an excuse, but when KG had Faf as captain, etc., I mean, the bowlers around KG for a very long time have been experienced bowlers. It's only when Lungi Ngidi came through the system against India in Centurion, that's when we started to see maybe another youngster come into the system, and then Plutusa Pamela started coming through, and then Nokia came into the scene, and that's become almost KG's like main partner, Lungi and Anrich. But what has happened as well is we've lost. He's also lost that experience hub around him. He's becoming that experienced player in the side now. He's been seen as the senior bowler in this test team. So do you feel that also is affecting him? Is the fact that we have a new captain, new leader that's going to come with a different approach and using him in a different way. Plus, he's now going to be looked at as in a new role as a senior bowler in the side, rather than the young, quick, fiery, fierce bowler that he was, with Morkel around him, Steyn around him, Philander around him, like before when we were not too long ago, actually.
But, I think post 2015, Dale Steyn started getting a lot more injuries, and he wasn't really he wasn't really as regular a part of the South African team as he was in previous years. If you remember, he was out on the first day of that Test match in Perth against Australia. Similarly, in 2018, when he recovered from injury, he had like this freak heel injury, and so I think at regular intervals post 2015, um, South Africa didn't really have the services of Dale Steyn. But yes, he did have Mone Mokel around him. He had Vernon Philander as well. So that experience does count. But at the same time, I think it's important to nurture a fast bowler well, right? And in South Africa, fast bowlers do develop faster than the batters do. It's a similar trend to Pakistan, right? Where you see that Babar Azam would probably take more time to develop into the player that he is now compared to Shaheen Shah Afridi, right? So somewhere I feel like uh, captaincy is important and using players aggressively in short bursts. Uh, that I think that tactically, perhaps Dean Elgar is still evolving as a captain, but it's certainly an important consideration when we analyze the team's performances.
Do you have anything to say, Vern, about Tina Akel's captaincy so far?
Um, there I have been. I feel neutral about his captaincy. I don't feel he's done a lot wrong, but he hasn't really done like things like say, oh, okay, that's a good decision. That it's good to get that guy in at leg slip because they're aiming at his hips. He's going to turn it around. Good to get that guy in there. I was a bit disappointed in the series against India. There was this time, just trying to think which test match it was, but there was this period with the tail where he just let the game drift for a long time, and something that frustrated me a bit was having like mid on and mid off, or having a long on and long off for Keshav the whole time, especially when new batters came in. He'd keep them out, and then they would just take an easy single to get off the mark, get at the other end, and the in batter can just go about his business. So stuff like that, technical awareness is very important as a captain, and I do feel Algar is still lacking basics like that, getting your fielding positions right. And but I guess you can also lay some blame at Kesh because he's a very experienced guy and he's also a captain of his domestic side and he has captained us in the T20s, so he probably should have said something as well. But I do feel that he can do with a bit more technical improvements. But it's hard to criticize him yet because he hasn't been captain for that long.
For long enough, yeah.
So I can't say he is a bad captain. He has led from the front with the bat at times. He has shown the willingness to fight, as he always does with the bat when he gets in. But yeah, I can't. I don't think I can place his captaincy just yet.
I feel like it's when South Africa goes out to bat, it's like a flick of the coin. 26 matches, only 3 times they've passed the 300 mark. I mean, that
I
since Boucher took over, it's
I
pretty
will say
dismal.
one thing I don't like about his captaincy is that he loses his tosses.
Well, everybody lost tosses. I mean, flipping Faf brought Temba Bavuma to take his tosses for him. So, like,
Yeah,
it was,
just tongue
it
in
was,
cheek, but we can really do
yeah,
with a win at the toss for a change.
yeah, we could. I mean, that does also make a massive difference. But still, 3 scores of over 300 in 26 matches since Boucher took over. It's pretty underwhelming, I'll say. And it's been seesaw, very, very seesaw. There's no consistency in South Africa as well. Consistently 200s, he has scored 200 plus scores, but it's been very seesaw from South Africa with the bat, and they need to improve that. It's just plain as simple as that. They need to find a way because we can't be struggling with the bat for 2 3 years now. It's been way too long that we are constantly almost like flicking a coin every time they walk out to the middle. We're not sure which side are we going to, which South African side we're going to get. It's almost like those paper pockets that you used to play when you used to open it up with the different colors and you pick a square. and you must blue, red, yellow. You must do it 5, 6, 7 times. It's almost like that with the Proteas currently. I feel when they go out to bat. So we need to find solidity at the top of the order. Um, it's such a shame that we have to look at this team and criticize them when they don't have their best batter from the last series. It's tough. How would have things have been if Keegan was there? But it is what it is. We have to talk about what we see in front of us. Good luck to the Proteas, of course, in the second test. Um, as we wrap things up, Werner, we can get your final thoughts, and Aditya, your final thoughts.
Yeah. Um, yeah, we are without Keegan, and I think it is a big blow for an inexperienced lineup. Even though he's still inexperienced, he did show good test match batting, as I referred to earlier, in the India series. But in the same on the same side, New Zealand are without Kane Williamson, who is like a pillar in their batting. And in those articles I referred to earlier, he was averaging like 62 in the last 3 years in Test match cricket with 700s. So being without him and still being able to put up scores of over 300, over 400, um, they just showed us how it's done. So you shouldn't be reliant on one guy to get you to big scores. Um, but yeah, so we'll need to see a lot better from the Proteas in the second match. Uh, we need to see the Proteas who showed up for the second and third games against India come back with a lot of fire in all departments, with the bowling, KG running in hard, all our bowlers running in hard, and getting that right length that they know they should be bowling. Our batters being consistent, um, putting the price on their wickets, don't be loose, but also look to be positive as far as you can. Take the positive approach as Timba did in that first test. Even though he didn't get a lot of runs, he looked a ton better than the other batters for most of that innings. And then take your catches. As simple as that. Take the catches that come your way. That'll just boost the morale of the team, the bowlers especially, and will run in extra hard if they know their fielders are going to catch everything.
Mhm.
I'd just like to reiterate what I said earlier about South Africa needing to do the basics well. And I'm going to start with the bowling and the fielding. If the fielders can support the tight lines and lengths that the bowlers can strive to achieve, then South Africa will be in a better position that they were in the first Test match. And with the batting again, I'm still going to emphasize that balance between attack and defense, which Keegan Peterson demonstrated so brilliantly in that Test series against India, is what all the batters in the South African lineup need to sort of get better at, uh, because that's the one facet of Test match batting that I think they haven't really nailed. And if they do, I think we'll be seeing a lot more 300 scores than we have in the recent past.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So that's the show. Thanks a lot for coming on to the show and come to watch the show with us and getting involved in the live chat and keeping the live chat going. Guys, when we have these panels, it's very difficult for us to read comments and read your guys' comments, etc., and read them out and keep track of them, because I have to also focus on what Aticha and Vern is saying. If I can't multitask, so if I'm going to read on the side and what you guys are saying, I'm going to completely miss the points that Aticha and Werner make. So I have to keep my eyes on them and listen to them what they have to say. So that's why the super chat is always open for you guys to get involved and get your questions heard. If you're really burning to ask your question and you want it answered, get involved in the super chat, please, guys, because I'm not going to get to it. There's too many comments currently in the live chat for me to keep up with it. So please get involved with the super chat if you want us to read it. If there's time at the end of shows, I will go trying my best to go through them. But you do know that we have a Q&A session on a Friday where you guys can ask us any questions that you want. So the game will happen tomorrow, tomorrow midnight. So basically Friday morning, early hours of the morning. So hoping that South Africa can get a bounce back victory over here. There's also some CSA T20 challenge happening. Friday is the semi-finals, Sunday is the finals. So there's a lot of cricket from a South African point of view to chat about. We'll see you again tomorrow with another daily show, guys. We maybe for tomorrow's show, it would be maybe a good idea to maybe chat about selection, get you guys an opportunity to choose your 11 again. Um, Maybe we could do a show like that tomorrow. You guys can get involved with the 11s, pick your 11 that you would like to see start in the second test against New Zealand. So, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow for another daily show. Hope you guys enjoy your evening, and I hope you guys are thinking about your 11s and bringing your 11s tomorrow so that we can pick a combined fans 11 ahead of the second test against New Zealand. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you guys again very soon. Take care.